AP Kai'Sa, on-hit Kog'Maw, mages making up almost the entirety of the 10 best ADCs on Emerald Plus U.GG. It's starting to feel as if the only way for bot laners to survive and have impact is to become some variation of an assassin, a spellcaster, or just burst champ. Which does beg the question, does ADC, as we've traditionally defined it, even exist?
Hey guys, today's episode of Don't At Me is sponsored by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever find yourself playing the budgeting game? Well, with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive, you can find options that fit your budget and potentially lower your bills. Make sure you try it over at progressive.com. Okay, now let's get back into today's story.
Okay, so I was on TikTok a couple weeks back, and I saw a post from streamer/challenger ranked bot laner Fiction.
There's so much mobility in the game, there's so much damage in the game, that every AD carry has been reduced to like burst variants of their identities. There's no more like kiting anymore. There's no more like trying to outposition them. Just all bursts and then you die because there's too much mobility in the game. Everyone has 10 dashes. AD carry doesn't really exist anymore in like the way that we defined it.
And the more I thought about it, the more I realized he's right. It's true that if ADCs want to survive, never mind thrive, they need to spec in such a way that they become a pseudo spellcaster or makeshift assassin. Fiction specifically instances AP Kai'Sa, Lethality Jinx, on-hit Kog'Maw, Hail of Blades Kalista, and First Strike Caitlyn as case in point examples of this. Mind you, this clip is from a few weeks ago. Since then, the reintroduction of lethal tempo has changed things somewhat. Jinx, for instance, takes lethal and goes Kraken into Phantom or Burke, but still finishes with IE into LDR. Kalista also takes lethal, but pairs it with an on-hit build. That said, there's no question that actual marksman ADCs and their builds are being outclassed, and have been for some time. As I mentioned at the outset, if you go on u.gg right now, you look at the ADC tier list, you can see that there are barely any ADCs in the top half. And the ones who are there all have something in common. Burst. High speed, high intensity burst. Kai'Sa has basically become a highly mobile Syndra. Kog'Maw just unloads damage before and after he dies, and Jhin is basically just a walking root and ult until his crit can scale and start one-shotting people. In a world where your opponents are beefier, more mobile, and in some cases do more damage than your average everyday ADC, your only hope is to just delete them in 2 seconds flat. Otherwise, this happens. Fiction's overarching point is just that the days of skillful kiting and long, sustained orb walking scuffles are sort of gone. Like, this is what playing ADC used to look like.
Take it out, but look at use the eye. Just goes hard in there, kills off kitties. He's going in for Kid. He flashes up. He's still alive, but he's gonna go down there. No, he stuns it. He stuns Doe against the wall, and now it's Insect coming in from behind the wall. Doe is in trouble. Insect's gonna dive him out there. Are they overdiving this? Insect might die here to the turret, but look at Kid going all the way.
Spencer.
Now, it looks like this.
The play works gorgeously. Karras is still going to go down, but now they have a man advantage for the rest. God! Morgan is a man.
Now, I know what you're thinking. Didn't we just exit a meta where ADCs were crazy busted and getting played in like every lane? Yes, but there were reasons for that. Faded Ashes made it AP junglers extremely OP, and so there was a need for AD elsewhere in a team's comp. Plus, IE was still really busted, and Absorb Life gave ADCs crazy sustain in lane. But all of this is actually illustrated of a larger point, which is that usually, whenever ADCs are actually really busted, it's because they're being played somewhere that isn't the bot lane.
ADC has never ever struggled to find relevance later in the game, but when ADC is really strong early, AD carries get to have fun, but then you see Lucian, Corki, Triss mid, then you see Zeri, Vayne, and TF top, then you start seeing Draven mid and top. It's kind of interesting because I think I'm not going to have as much fun being weak early, but I'm going to have a little bit more fun that ADCs aren't, on average like 4 to 6 ADCs per game.
I bet you're also thinking that it's very typical of ADC players to whine, and it is. But there is a good reason for that.
ADC role
Trash roll.
is
Grash role.
So pissed. it's been the
Yep.
weakest role for the last half year minimum.
Yep.
I don't know why people don't mention it. They're so bad.
Because you don't want to be a crybaby.
ADCs gets one shot by every single role, and then they get to late game where they're supposed to carry, but
And they
then
can't carry.
others, the ADC is so bad, right?
To be fair, both Doublelift and Baus are largely talking about solo queue. But there's a reason for that. It encompasses like literally 99% of the player base.
Well, it's just dog shit in solo queue. Straight up. Straight up is the role is a dog shit in solo queue. I still think that the role is I like it's decent in competitive. It's certainly not like the shittiest role ever in competitive. It's definitely but like 99.9% of people, you guys, we play solo queue, right? Like we all play solo queue, and the role is in a worse spot it's been in fucking forever.
But even in pro, if you're currently watching Worlds, you'll notice that a lot of the ADCs that are being picked are quote-unquote safe. Stuff that either has ranged CC, like Jhin, Ashe, or Xayah, or is bursty and mobile, like Kai'Sa, Ezreal, or even Kalista.
Up on Mickey X, is it enough? Ben and now untouched, the 3 carries at the core of BLG. Can they find the angle? G2 blinking health bars, but they still stay strong. Alk on the chase. Caps trying to make the difference. The ulti on Sama taken out. Alk versus the world. Alk continuing to find the angles. The slower's there. The double kill is there. Alk.
But remember, this is Worlds. This is literally the highest level of play, a place where teammates actually communicate and peel for you and prioritize you. In solo queue, it's a world of difference.
AD carry is the single worst f***ing role in solo queue you can ever play in your f***ing life. It's absolute nightmare scenario territory f***ing horror. Okay, this is how AD carry works in solo queue. You queue up, is your support a human? Check number 1. If there's no, then you've already lost. What's gonna happen is he's either gonna solo lose your lane, or you're gonna get 5-man Dova on cooldown. Great, your support's a human. Okay, we got past step 1, you know. Step 2 is your top side inting, okay? Because I can go 5-0 in my lane, and my top jungle's losing or my mid jungle's useless, and it doesn't matter. I get 4-man Dove, 5-man Dove, the game's over. Step number 3, is there any globals in the game? Do they have TF or Nocturne or Shen or some dog shit like that? Yes or no? If yes, then it doesn't matter if you win lane, you're gonna have 4-man Dove again, and it's lost.
And look, I'm not saying that ADCs have never been busted, or that they won't be busted again. What I am saying is that, in general, bot lane carry has become an absurdly volatile role. One whose potency is almost entirely predicated on getting creative. The reality is that with Cassante and Aurora and even brain-dead win shitters like Yone in the game, the time to deletion has become extremely narrow. The combination of mobility, tankiness, and damage output is very difficult for traditional ADCs to combat. Ergo, AP Kai'Sa. I mention AP Kai'Sa because it is the perfect example of the community theory crafting alternative builds that are actually really effective. For those who don't know, Kai'Sa's go-to build has for some time been a full-on spellcaster build. Now, it's taken several forms over the last little while, but the gist is always the same. Build AP, stand on the periphery, and, silly as it sounds, spam f***ing W's. The cooldown reduction on the W evolve combined with Nash, Ginsu's, and eventually, Deathcap, Shadowflame, whatever, allows you to chunk people from an ungodly distance before ulting in and teamfighting in earnest. The build got so popular that Riot almost certainly tried to discourage this kind of spam ability by reworking Kai'Sa's W evolve on the PBE, making it so that instead of a cooldown reduction, it went through any targets it hit. Unfortunately, this was even more busted, so they left it as is. Riot also implemented a sweeping nerf to legendary items, making it so that, in general, champions do less everything. And while I'm sure this will actually help slow the game down and make it so that ADCs can press 3 buttons before they die instead of 2, it does seem undeniable that ADC in general is just in a very weird place, if not an outright existential crisis. The question of how to fix it, or even what it is that needs fixing, is a complicated one, and I don't think that everyone's going to agree on the answer. But the conversation is sure to be interesting, because the things that are making ADC quote-unquote unplayable are a lot of the same things that are making League in general hectic and frustrating and chaotic and just generally uncontrollable. What's more, Riot are putting into question the very notion of what it means to be an ADC, of what the identity of this role even is. Not every ADC needs to be an orb-walking marksman. But they can't all be burst champs. Like, they can't all just be pale imitations of spellcasters or assassins. The challenge for Riot is to rediscover what makes ADC special and to preserve it. To figure out what it is that ADCs can do that no other role can, and then allow players to capitalize on it. And so far, it seems like Riot are struggling with that a little bit. There's a reason that champs like Neela or Samira exist. They are ways to skirt the issue by allowing ADCs to literally become an assassin or a bruiser without actually solving the issue. What do you think? Is ADC actually in a great spot and the people who play it have just become massive crybabies, or is the role in dire straits and maybe even beyond saving? Did you see the Casual co-stream when the G2 draw happened? I had it live. It was on in my living room. I was doing something in my house. I've never seen someone that physically and mentally broken. They drew T1, BLG last, and wasn't it HLE first? Who was it?